Talking about family offices, someone's built up assets over time. Where do they start?
The starting point's always about the family. So it's always about understanding who the family is, what they stand for, what are the relationships like between, mum and dad and the kids and the grandkids, if there are any, understanding what their expectations are and how they feel about how they've been involved in the past and how they want to be involved in the future and things like that. Is there an expectation that they will become involved in the business at some point in the future? And if so, what are the expectations around things like experience and education and things like that? So it gets really quite complicated. Obviously, the bigger the family, the more complicated it gets. But what I find, and what I think is a bit of a misconception, is that family offices are only, and this family investigation piece is only for rich families. And it's not always the case. What I find is that the amount of wealth that a family needs to have for this to be relevant is inversely proportionate to the complexity of the family. So, a really simple family, mum and dad, 2 kids, they all get along really harmoniously, probably wouldn't need to go through this process unless they had quite a lot of wealth. Whereas if you had a family with 7 kids and, ex-wives and things like that, you might find that you don't actually need as much for this process to be relevant, just because there's a lot more risk that intergenerational transfer might fail due to that complexity.
Yeah, and I think if we had to put numbers to things, I'd imagine it'd be somewhere north of 10 million or so before you're starting to look at these sort of process issues, but complexity might be something else.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I would have thought, at 10 million, like the more complex families come into play, but certainly that's not to say that that's not always the case. At probably 20 to 30 million, you probably get most people into play. So it's certainly not something that's only for those 100 million plus sort of people. So I think it's sort of closer around that sort of 20 to 25 mark would be the entry point for a normal family.
Yeah.
Inverted commas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And legal issues, Rob Lamb, anything you can add to that?
Well, I suppose, as Craig said, the problem comes with complexity, and the expense comes from the lack of planning. So if there is going to be an issue, you need to see someone like us and explain it to them. So, for example, is there stepchildren? Is there, as you say, ex-spouses? Is there people who may cause a problem? Problem's the wrong word. Not everyone wants to be part of the family business. So, for example, so-and-so says, well, I don't want to be part of this business, I just want to do my own thing. But when the time comes for the transfer of that wealth, that person needs to be addressed. And whether it's by pure money or there's sometimes even something as simple as an allocation of wealth for that person at the time of transfer, there also has to be contingencies, for people getting divorced and things like that, taking into account the actual people themselves, and the family itself is such a bespoke thing, which we've all dealt with those clients. We're all very good at dealing with those individuals on a case-by-case basis. We're not a cookie-cutter place. We just sit down with the people and we talk about it and get to know them. As Craig said, you get to know their business, the people, their families, and make sure those things are in place and their needs are addressed and those things are thought through. So the legal things will always come up. Those, the accounting things, the financial things will always come up, but it's getting to know the people. And I think without talking us up too much, that's what we're good at. I think that's what we've proven ourselves to be good at.